The workers know this is important. They are not being deceived. They are not on the verge of revelation. They are not about to discover a terrible secret buried beneath layers of institutional lies. They know that corpse starch is made from human bodies. They know that when they die, they will become corpse starch. They know, with the dull and practiced certainty of people who have known something for so long, it has lost the power to wound them, that they are eating their co-workers. They eat it anyway. This is not a conspiracy. This is Administratum Directive 7721 Gamma, biomass reclamation and nutritional redistribution. It is public policy. It has been in effect for 7,000 years. It is posted in every ration dispensary in every hive, on every hive world in the Emporium of Man. Workers read it every morning when they scan their identification cards. The words do not change. They have not changed in living memory. They will not change. Processed protein, reclamation origin, nutritional content, 1,600 calories per 400 g. Distribution, daily. Administratum Directive 7721 Gamma compliant. They read it. They eat it. They return to their stations. 60,000 workers die per day in hive primus. Each body yields 65 kilograms of usable biomass. 94% biomass recovery rate. 18% protein by mass. That protein feeds 1,770,000 workers for a single day. Without this system, those workers starve. The Imperium does not make this choice lightly. It makes it mathematically. And the question is not how can they do this. The question is how can they accept this. The answer is hunger. Hunger makes philosophers of no one. The world is called Kratos Secundus. It occupies a fixed point in the segmentum obscurus, a designation that feels appropriate, given everything. Population, 85 billion. Classification, industrial manufactorum. It produces munitions, chemical weapons, and industrial machinery in quantities that feed the Imperium's unending wars. It imports every calorie it requires, except the calories it produces from its own dead. Hive primus rises 8 kilometers above the toxic surface. It descends 4 kilometers into the bedrock. It houses 40 billion people. The air is breathable, but carries the smell of chemical runoff and human sweat. The water is recycled and rationed. The soil below is poison. The oceans are chemical sludge. Nothing grows on Kratos Secundus. Nothing has grown for 3,000 years. Every calorie consumed in hive primus comes from 2 sources: imported grain protein from agri-worlds and corpse starch processed from the hive's own dead. The grain covers 60% of caloric need. The corpse starch covers the remaining 40%. Without corpse starch, 16 billion people in hive primus alone would starve. Manufactorum Sector 12 Gamma produces chemical weapons, specifically phosphex canisters, viral grenades, acid shells. The work is dangerous. Chemical exposure is common. Protective equipment degrades quickly. Workers breathe fumes and touch corrosives and operate machinery that can kill in seconds. And in Sector 12 Gamma, the standard is 6 to 12 deaths per shift, every shift, without exception. Youngest worker, currently on record, 14 years old. Apprentice grade. Average worker lifespan, 42 years. Every death is recorded. Every body is collected. Every corpse is processed. New workers are informed on their first day. You get 400 grams corpse starch per day. That, plus algae paste and water. You know what's in the starch. Eat it or starve. No one chooses. Starvation. This was not a crisis. This was not an emergency. This was Tuesday. His name was David Roth. He was 46 years old. He had worked in Sector 12 Gamma for 26 years, monitoring chemical VAT-7 Delta, tracking temperature and pressure in the phosphex precursor line. If the temperature dropped, production slowed. If it rose too fast, the vat exploded. Davin had kept it from exploding for 26 years, through nothing more than attention and habit, and a body worn smooth by repetition. He worked 16-hour shifts, He slept 8 hours. He repeated this cycle every day. He had 4 rest days per year, which he spent in his 3-by-3-meter hab block, resting. He woke at 0400. He walked 7 minutes through corridors smelling of iron and recycled air to the ration dispensary. Workers moved in silence. Everyone was tired. Everyone was always tired. He scanned his identification card. The machine dispensed 400 grams corpse starch, pressed into a dense gray-brown bar, 100 grams algae paste, half a liter of water. He ate standing at the dispensary. The corpse starch was chalky, tasteless, difficult to swallow. It had the texture of compressed ash and a faint chemical bitterness from the preservatives. He chased it with water. It sat heavy in his stomach. In 26 years, it had never stopped being heavy. When Davin was 16, his supervisor had said processed protein from the reclamation facility. Davin had asked, "What goes into the reclamation facility?" The supervisor had said, "Dead workers. Your father probably. Don't think about it. Just eat." Davin had eaten. His father had died in a conveyor accident when Davin was 14. The body had been collected by medical servitors within minutes. Davin had received his father's final wages that evening. He had also received corpse starch 3 days later, same as always. He did not think about whether his father had been in that ration. He could not afford to think about it. He ate it anyway. In 26 years, Davin had been injured 14 times, 9 chemical burns, 3 equipment malfunctions, 2 heat exposure incidents. He had seen 47 co-workers die. Every body collected within minutes, every station refilled within hours. He did not think about grand things. He thought, "My back hurts. How many more years can I do this? Will Sarah get assigned somewhere safer?" The ration today was more bitter than usual. "I am tired. I am always tired." He did not think about whose body he was eating. Thinking led to madness. Madness led to mistakes. Mistakes led to death. And death led to the reclamation facility. The cycle was simple. He did not question it. It was a day like any other. Shift began at 0600. Morning inspection. All readings within normal parameters. Temperature, 118 degrees Celsius. Pressure, 2.4 bar. Chemical composition, optimal. For 8 hours, everything was normal. At 14-17 hours, the temperature sensor on VAT-7 Delta malfunctioned. The malfunction was internal. A corroded contact, accumulated over 11 years of continuous chemical exposure. The sensor continued to display normal readings. The actual temperature began rising. Davin watched the gauge. The gauge showed 118 degrees. It had always shown 118 degrees. He had no reason to doubt it. At 14-23 hours, the pressure spiked. The pressure gauge was on a separate system. He saw it. He reached for the emergency vent. His hand was 30 centimeters from the valve when the vat ruptured. Phosphex precursor sprayed across the platform in a 4-meter radius. Davin was struck by the primary stream. The chemical dissolved his protective suit in 2.3 seconds. It reached his skin. Phosphex precursor dissolves organic matter in 4 to 6 seconds. Davin died screaming. The scream lasted 4 seconds. Then his lungs dissolved. Time of death, 14-24 hours. Cause, chemical exposure, catastrophic. Duration of suffering, 4 to 6 seconds. Klaxon sounded. The vat was sealed automatically. Work in Sector 12 Gamma, halted for 40 minutes. Decontamination, secondary exposure assessment. 2 other workers received minor chemical burns. They received basic Medicaid treatment and returned to their stations within 90 minutes. Davin's remains were collected by medical servitors in sealed containers. Labeled, body compromised, estimated 87% biomass recovery. Destination, reclamation facility Alpha 7. At 1504 hours, work in Sector 12 Gamma resumed. A replacement worker was assigned to VAT-7 Delta within the hour. Her name was Sarah Roth. She was Davin's daughter. She had worked in textile processing for 8 years. Chemical vat operation was considered a promotion. Higher danger pay, 420 grams of ration, instead of 400. She took her position. She did not speak. The temperature sensor was still malfunctioning. A repair order had been filed. Estimated completion, 72 hours. Sarah monitored the vat manually. She was careful. She had a son to support. That evening, a notification was affixed to her door. Worker 7724 Gamma 4471, Davin Roth, deceased. Final wages and personal effects available at Administratum Office 12G7. Collection window, 72 hours. She collected his wages that night. His personal effects, 1 worn chronometer, 1 set of prayer beads, 1 faded pic capture of his wedding day. His protective suit was not included, too contaminated to reclaim. His body was already at the reclamation facility. Davin's body arrived at Reclamation Facility Alpha 7 at 1612 hours. It was one of 127 bodies collected from Sector 12 Gamma that day. Body number 4471 processed at Alpha 7 that day. Phosphex exposure had dissolved approximately 40% of soft tissue prior to collection. Estimated usable biomass, 54 kilograms. Reclamation Facility Alpha 7 occupied 6 square kilometers of Hive Primus's lower levels. It had operated without interruption for 217 years. The air inside smelled of rendered fat and chemical preservatives. The temperature was constant, 35 degrees Celsius. The sound was continuous, grinding, hissing, the mechanical rhythm of industrial processing. It never stopped. Day and night, the sound was the same. The process was methodical. Bodies were sorted, fresh, compromised, contaminated, into separate processing lines. Automated systems removed all non-organic material. The body was washed with industrial solvents, then transferred to an industrial vat 3 meters wide and 4 meters deep, holding 12 other compromised bodies. Chemical solvents were added. Enzyme solution, acid buffer, preservation compound. The vat was sealed and heated to 140 degrees Celsius. Over the next 2 hours, the bodies dissolved. Not violently, not dramatically. Chemistry. The same chemistry that breaks down any organic matter, simply accelerated and controlled. Davin Roth's body became liquid. The bones were separated by filtration, dried and ground into calcium powder for ceramide production. Davin's bones would become part of a wall panel in a hab block somewhere in Hive Primus. Workers would lean against it. No one would know. The liquid biomass was rendered. Fat siphoned off for industrial lubricants. The remaining liquid, primarily dissolved protein, was filtered 3 times, then treated with enzymes that broke complex proteins into amino acid chains suitable for human consumption. What emerged was a thick gray-brown paste. It smelled of chemical preservatives. Nothing else. Davin Roth had become corpse starch. Yield report, body 4,471. Protein paste produced, 9.7 kilograms. Calcium powder, 8 kilograms. Industrial fat, 4 kilograms. Recovery rate, 87%. The paste was pressed into bars, 400 grams each, sealed in wax paper stamped with the Aquila, packed into crates. Davin's body produced 24 bars and a partial 25th. The crates were shipped to distribution centers across Hive Primus. Within 48 hours, 3 bars were delivered to Sector 12 Gamma. One of those bars was dispensed to Worker 7724 Gamma, 9983, Sarah Roth, Davin's daughter. She scanned her ID. The machine dispensed her ration. She ate standing at the dispensary where her father had eaten every morning for 26 years. The corpse starch was chalky, tasteless, difficult to swallow. She did not know it was her father, but she knew it was someone's father. She ate it anyway. Sarah Roth was 24 years old. She had eaten corpse starch every day of her life. She had always known what it was. Her mother had never told her directly, but she had learned the same way every child learns, by listening, by watching, by asking questions adults didn't want to answer. When Sarah was 9, she asked her mother what happened to her grandfather. Her mother said he died at work, and his body was collected. Sarah asked where they took it. Her mother didn't answer. Sarah already knew. She had heard older children talking. She had seen the reclamation trucks, gray, sealed, moving through the corridors at all hours. She ate her ration that night anyway. She was hungry. On her first day as an adult worker, age 14, apprentice textile, her supervisor handed her a ration bar. Corpse starch. 400 grams. Eat or go hungry. Sarah looked at it. She said, "I want you to say what it's made from." The supervisor said, "Dead workers, processed in the reclamation facility. 94% biomass recovery, perfectly safe. Eat it or starve." Sarah ate it. It tasted like nothing, like ash compressed into solid form. She had eaten it every day for 10 years after that, because the alternative was not theoretical. 7 years before, a transport malfunction had delayed Agri-World grain shipments for 2 months. Rations were cut to 200 grams per day. Workers died, not from accidents, but from hunger. Sarah remembered the hollow eyes, the skeletal hands, the bodies collected from hab blocks instead of workstations. She remembered being genuinely, physically hungry for 60 consecutive days. She never questioned corpse starch again. Sarah had a son. His name was Cal. He was 3 years old. In 11 years he would begin work. He would eat corpse starch. He would learn what it was made from. He would eat it anyway. Sarah thought about this sometimes. She thought, "I am eating corpses. My son will eat corpses. His children will eat corpses." And then she thought, what else is there? There was no answer. Sarah worked VAT-7 Delta for 22 more years. At age 46, she died in a conveyor accident, crushed between moving machinery in the industrial transit corridor. Her body was collected within minutes, processed at reclamation facility Alpha 7. She produced 17.8 kilograms of protein paste. She fed 44 workers for 1 day. One of those workers was her son, Kale. He did not know he was eating his mother, but he knew he was eating someone's mother. He ate it anyway. Adept Vin of the Administratum had filed efficiency reports on reclamation facilities for 17 years. He had approved biomass recovery quotas and protein distribution assessments across 3 sectors. He understood the system intellectually the way one understands mathematics, as a set of relationships between numbers, clean and abstract, divorced from sensation. He had never audited a reclamation facility in person. The facility director, a mechanicus adept with augmetic respiratory filters, provided the briefing with practiced efficiency. 15,247 bodies processed yesterday, 94.1% biomass recovery, 1.06 million kilograms protein produced. This feeds 2.65 million workers daily. All metrics within parameters. Vin reviewed the numbers. They were acceptable. Protocol required in-person verification every 10 years. He accepted the tour. He watched bodies unloaded from sealed transport units. 1 body every 12 seconds. He watched automated scanners process each one. He watched servitors sort them. Fresh line, compromised line, contaminated line. He watched bodies loaded into vats. Chemical solvents added. Vats sealed. 2 hours later, the vats opened. The bodies were gone. In their place, gray-brown paste. He asked, "Do the workers know what corpse starch is made from?" The director looked confused at the question. Of course. It's public policy, posted in every dispensary. Everyone knows. And they eat it. Of course they eat it. The alternative is starvation. Vin had known all of this. He had filed reports on it for 17 years. But standing there, watching human bodies dissolve into nutritional paste, he understood something viscerally that he had only ever known abstractly. The Imperium was feeding people to themselves, and the people knew. And they ate anyway. That night he reviewed the numbers with new eyes. Hive primus population, 40 billion. Daily caloric requirement, 1,100 calories per person. Total requirement, 64 trillion calories. Import capacity, 38 trillion. Deficit, 26 trillion. Corpse starch production, 26.5 trillion. Without corpse starch, 16.5 billion people would starve. The worst part, the part Venn would never speak aloud, was that it was necessary. Not convenient, not expedient, necessary. The system was not maintained by villains, it was maintained by mathematics. He filed his report. Biomass recovery, 94.1%. Processing time, acceptable. Protein yield, within parameters. Recommendation, continue operations. He did not mention the smell. He did not mention watching bodies dissolve. These were not relevant to an efficiency audit. That night, Venn ate his meal, imported protein from an agri-world, not corpse starch. He was grateful. Then he thought about the 40 billion workers below, eating corpse starch, knowing what it was, eating it anyway. He thought, how long has this been happening? The record said 7,000 years. 7,000 years of workers eating workers. 7,000 years of hunger making the unthinkable routine. 7,000 years of the system functioning exactly as designed. He could not decide whether to admire the efficiency or despair at the necessity. He settled on both. Then he moved to his next assignment. There was a worker named Heron Kess. He was 32 years old or processing Sector 8 Beta. He had eaten corpse starch every day for 18 years. One day, he stopped. Not because of philosophy, because his sister died. Her name was Pell. 28 years old, waste reclamation, toxic exposure, classified as expected mortality for her sector. Body collected within the hour. 3 days later, Heron watched the reclamation truck deliver rations to his dispensary. He thought, that could be her. I could be eating my sister. He could not eat it. Day 1, he refused his ration. He felt righteous. He felt, for the first time in 18 years, that he had made a choice that was genuinely his own. Day 2, he felt hungry. Day 3, his hands were shaking. His supervisor warned him, you'll lose strength, you'll make mistakes. Mistakes get people killed. Heron said, I can't eat it. The supervisor said, you will eat it, or you will die. Either way, you end up in the ration. Day 5, Heron collapsed. The medici who examined him was direct. You're refusing your ration. I can't eat it. It's people. Yes, it is. Eat or die. Your choice. I choose to die. Then you'll be processed and become corpse starch anyway. You'll feed others instead of yourself. Is that better? Heron didn't answer. Day 6, Heron ate his ration. Because dying of starvation to become corpse starch anyway made no logical sense. Because 5 days of hunger had taught him everything he needed to know about the relationship between morality and survival. Because his principles meant nothing to his empty stomach. He ate. He cried while he ate. But he ate. Within a month, he had stopped crying. Within a year, he had stopped thinking about it. Within 3 years, he explained the ration system to a new apprentice, the same way his supervisor had explained it to him. Corpse starch. You know what it's made from. Eat it or starve. The apprentice ate it. The system continued. Kyle was 7 years old when he asked his mother what corpse starch was made from. Sarah paused. She had known the question would come. Every child asked eventually. She could lie, but lies didn't help. He would learn the truth soon enough. Lies only created the shock of discovery, and that shock was worse. A wound opened suddenly rather than a weight accepted slowly. She said, dead people. Kyle stared at his ration bar. Dead people? Yes, workers who died at their jobs. Their bodies are sent to the reclamation facility and processed into protein. That's what you're eating. Kyle stared at the bar for a long time. Sarah said, it's okay to be upset, but you still have to eat it. There's no other food. Kyle said, will I become corpse starch when I die? Yes. Will you eat me? Sarah didn't answer. Kyle ate his ration. He cried while he ate it. But he ate it. Sarah watched him and thought, in 5 years, he won't cry anymore. In 10 years, he won't think about it. In 15 years, he'll have a child of his own. He'll have this same conversation. His child will cry. and eat, and stop crying, and eat without thinking. This is how the system perpetuates, not through ignorance, but through hunger, not through deception, but through necessity, not through cruelty, but through mathematics. The administratum did not design this to be cruel. The mechanics did not optimize this to be monstrous. They did it because 16 billion people would starve otherwise, and 16 billion people starving is worse. Hive Primus is not unique. It is one of 47 hives on Crato Secundus. Every hive has reclamation facilities. Every hive processes its dead. Every hive feeds workers to workers. Crato Secundus is not unique. It is one of 10,000 hive worlds in the Emporium of Man. On every hive world, there are reclamation facilities. On every hive world, there are ration dispensaries with the same notice posted beside the same machines. On every hive world, there are workers who know exactly what they are eating. On every hive world, they eat it anyway. The administratum does not calculate the total number of bodies processed across all worlds across all years. The number is too large to be meaningful. Numbers that large stop being numbers. They become the sound of machinery, the smell of rendered fat, the texture of gray-brown paste in your mouth, chalky, tasteless, heavy, sitting in your stomach the way it always sits. The administratum has calculated every alternative. Increase agri-world production, requires terraforming new worlds, 500 to 1,000 years per world, cost incalculable. Reduce hive world populations, requires relocating billions of workers, collapses production across the Imperium, causes more deaths than it prevents. Improve transport efficiency, requires doubling the merchant fleet, 200 years minimum. Resource allocation impossible given current war zone demands. Continue current system, cost zero additional resources. Efficiency, 94% biomass recovery. Status, currently operational. The Imperium chose to continue. It was the only logical choice. The horror is not that corpse starch exists. The horror is that it must exist. The horror is that the workers are right to eat it. Kyle Roth began work at 14. Sector 12 Gamma, chemical vat operations. The same sector where his grandfather had died at Vat 7 Delta. The same sector where his mother worked. On his first day, his supervisor handed him a ration bar. Corpse starch, 400 grams. Eat or go hungry. He said, "I want you to say what it's made from." The supervisor said, "Dead workers. Your grandfather probably. Maybe your grandmother. Maybe someone you knew. Eat it or starve." Kyle ate it. That night he thought about everything he knew. His grandfather had worked this exact station for 26 years and died here. His grandmother had died of respiratory failure. His mother worked this same vat. He thought, "I have been eating corpse starch my entire life. I have probably eaten my grandfather. I may have eaten my grandmother. I will eventually eat my mother." Then he thought, "Does it matter?" He decided it didn't, because knowing changed nothing. The ration was the same. The hunger was the same. The choice was the same, eat or starve, and become the ration anyway. The system was not personal. The system did not care who was eating whom. The system processed bodies and produced protein and distributed it, and the workers ate it, and worked and died and were processed. It was not cruel. It was not kind. It simply was. Kyle worked for 31 years. He survived longer than his grandfather, longer than his mother. At 45, he died in a vat rupture, catastrophic failure, direct chemical exposure, same as David Roth before him. His body was collected, processed at Reclamation Facility Alpha 7, which by then had been operating continuously for 248 years. He produced 18.2 kilograms of protein paste. He fed 45 workers for one day. One of those workers was his daughter. She did not know she was eating her father, but she knew she was eating someone's father. She ate it anyway. This is the inheritance: work, die, process, consume. Every generation, forever. In Reclamation Facility Alpha 7, the conveyors move. They have not stopped in 217 years. They will not stop today. Bodies are loaded into vats, chemical solvents added, vats sealed, heated to 140 degrees Celsius, opened. The bodies are gone. In their place, gray-brown paste. 60,000 bodies per day. Every day. 7,000 years. In Sector 12 Gamma, workers scan their IDs. They receive their rations. They eat standing at the dispensary. The same dispensary their fathers ate at. The same dispensary their children will eat at. The corpse starch is chalky, tasteless, difficult to swallow. They chase it with water. It sits heavy in their stomachs. It is always heavy. It has always been heavy. They know what it is. They eat it anyway. The administratum reviews the efficiency reports. The numbers are acceptable. The commendation is filed. The system continues. Hive Primus is not unique. It is one of 47 hives. Kratos Secundus is not unique. It is one of 10,000 worlds. On every world the conveyors move. On every world the dispensaries open in the morning. On every world, workers stand in corridors that smell of iron and recycled air and eat something that was, 3 days ago, one of them. This is not a tragedy. Tragedies have endings. This is simply the way things are. The Imperium does not waste anything. When you die, you become food. Your co-workers know this. They will eat you anyway, because the alternative is starvation. And starvation is real. And hunger makes philosophers of no one. Work, die, process, consume, every generation, every hive, every world, forever. The Imperium is not evil. Evil implies choice, cruelty, intent. The Imperium is a closed-loop system. Resources in, resources out. Bodies are resources. When workers die, they become protein. That protein feeds living workers. Those workers die. The cycle continues. The workers know. They have always known. They eat corpse starch knowing it is made from human remains. They eat it because the alternative is real and immediate and worse. 60,000 bodies per day, 21.9 million per year, 153 billion in 7,000 years. The math is simple. The choice is inevitable. The horror is not the system. The horror is that the system is right. 94% biomass recovery. Nothing wasted. The Emperor provides.